So I was describing to the outside group, the first group that I was talking with, that most of this technology is state of the art from 15 years ago. And by today's standards, this stuff is really obsolete. It still works, and it works fine for us, but most of these components, individual pieces, now fit into a single box that is, miniaturized, computerized, and very modern and quite reliable. The stuff that we've got, when we first put it in, some of it was more or less experimental, and things often failed. And when they would fail, I'd try to figure out, first of all, what was the thing that failed, and then I'd call the manufacturer. Without hesitation, they all said, well, tell us what happened. How did it fail? Go down and measure the voltage on the green wire and come back and tell me what it is. And then they'd say, send it back to us, we'll send you another one free. We were their R&D, we were guinea pigs. But the charge controllers up here were replaced, 5 years ago?
Yeah, when we got our other batteries, our last batteries.
We used to have the charge controllers that were part of this center, and they were great big mercury switches inside with some temperamental LED controllers here. And every time there was an electric storm, a lightning storm, anywhere within 5 miles of here, one of these things would fail. And I'd call the company and they'd say, oh yeah, that's probably still happening. We'll try again. And they'd send us the replacement parts. We had generator controllers that we were replacing every year. We were swapping it out. And the company would take them back, fix them, figure out what failed and why it failed, and get better. Now, these guys, these charge controllers up here that we have, we put in, like I said, 5-6 years ago, they've never failed once. Now, just in the last 2 months, I've been meeting with an electrician to do some other work, and he was saying how these have been improved upon tremendously now, and he'd like to sell me the newest ones because they will actually generate or conduct the power in a more effective manner from the solar panels to our batteries. And we could benefit from that gain. Of course, the question is, how much is the benefit versus how much does the new charge controllers cost? But that's part of the things, the trade-offs that we have to make when we're deciding what we want to do. And as we're proceeding, many of these components are wearing out, getting old. These inverters here, which I can describe in a minute, they're obsolete. They don't even sell them anymore, I don't think. So eventually these will have to get replaced. But let me get to what these units do. How I was describing to the first group, the power comes in from those solar panels and big heavy wires through the charge controllers and into the battery bank. And our batteries are in the room right behind here. And we'll show you those in a few minutes. A whole nother story about the batteries. We're now on our 3rd battery bank in 15 years. The battery bank we have now is vastly different than the first battery bank we had. When we use power to run the TV, the lights upstairs, the microwave oven, the power comes out of the batteries at 24-volt DC, goes through these inverters that converts the power from DC to 120 or 240 AC, goes through this little wire here, over here to this control panel, and this breaker box is just like anybody else's breaker box in any home, and the house is wired the same from there, from here up, just like any other house, with one exception. That's this big heavy wire right here that runs 24-volt DC straight upstairs to our DC refrigerator, which, refrigeration and water pumping is your two biggest energy loads. We've got a very efficient refrigerator, and you want to use a really big wire and have it fairly short. So the refrigerator is right directly overhead here. So it's a real short wire and real heavy wire, and that refrigerator runs on about 60 watts of power. So it's
60 watts, a light bulb.
like a light bulb, yeah. So it's a pretty good thing. Although it doesn't have any ice dispenser through the door, and it needs to be defrosted 3 times a year and that sort of stuff, because all of those features takes extra power. So we're generating our power and everything's fine until, well, let's say we've got a really cloudy couple of days and the wind isn't blowing and things are running still in the battery banks, getting lower and lower on power. this unit right here monitors that battery voltage. And when it gets down to a level that would possibly hurt the battery bank, it's smart enough to say, start the generator. We've got a backup generator. So it sends the signal out to the garage, starts the backup generator. That power comes in through this wire here, through these series of switches, turns off the inverters, and sends that power right to the house, and we run the house off the generator. It also sends power down here to these two silver boxes on the wall. They're battery chargers. They send power into the batteries. The batteries start building up excess power again, and when it gets up to a level that this pre-programmed unit says, okay, the batteries are safe again, we'll turn the generator off and switch everything over back to battery power. All automated when everything's working right. It just so happens that, I don't know, a month and a half ago, we lost our backup generator. It's a long story. I'll try to not bore you too much, but we're in the process of replacing that generator. And I've been looking at, I went online and shopped. There's tons of generators out there. The generator that we have used for the last 15 years was an old Kawasaki 5,000 watt generator that was made to run on gasoline. Well, when we bought it, we had it converted to propane, and we run it right off of our propane tank. But if you know anything about engines, you know that engines that are designed to run on gasoline don't like to run on propane very well. And they break periodically, and I've had to rebuild the engine like 5 times. But I used to be a motorcycle mechanic, so that I know how to do that sort of thing.
If it wasn't for Bob, we wouldn't be doing half of this stuff.
It would be hard to do this with you if you didn't have some mechanical ability.
Right.
So unfortunately, like I said, a month and a half ago, that generator failed, but it wasn't the engine that failed, it was the generator part of it. Some of the windings in it finally shorted out. And the cost to buy the new stator for that little portable generator was almost the cost of a new replacement generator. So we're in the business right now of shopping for a generator, and I haven't told you yet, but I'm going to try to enlist some of you guys to help me pick up the generator that I've got out there that I bought. It can't work on an off-grid house. It's a long story, but I bought it online and had it delivered, and had an electrician come out to hook it up, and he called the company and said, I'm looking at this and the wiring diagram, and I can't seem to figure out how this is going to work. And they said, well, it can't work on an off-grid home. It has to be connected to an on-grid home. It's a very long and detailed story. We've been talking with the company, Generac, actually from Whitewater, the Guardian company, and they've been helpful, but it's turning out that we're going to have to return the 8,000 watt unit and possibly buy their 10,000 watt unit because it's got different wiring in it. So